On the night of July 10, 2016 in Taipei, Taiwan, two men with empty backpacks arrive at an ATM to withdraw some cash. However, they did not enter any card or pins to withdraw the money. They just waited in front of the machine and the machine started spitting thousands of bills, literally flying all over the place. They simply picked up the money, stashed in their backpacks and fled the area. That night, they went on to 22 different ATMs to retrieve hundreds and thousands of dollars. All they had to do was reach the ATMs on specific times and the machine would simply obey their command. Over the course of a week, these two men were able to collect millions of dollars from 41 compromised ATM machines that were hacked by a group of highly professional hackers. And this ATM hacking in Taiwan was just the tip of the iceberg. These hackers had infiltrated into the networks of hundreds of banks and financial institutions across 30 countries, which enabled them to steal over 1.2 billion US dollars, and this is how they did it. In the early August of 2015, a bank employee in Europe's one of the largest banks received an email from a high-value customer stating that there has been an unusual activity in their account and account balances in their audits don't add up. He even attached an Excel document with email for the bank employee to look into. The employee, with a serious sense of concern, read the email and quickly opened the attached document to have a look at the customer's complaint. However, as he opened the document, it showed a chart with a bunch of numbers and a lot of gibberish that didn't make any sense. He simply ignored the document for the day so that he could take a look at it the next day. What he had just done is he had more than welcomed a highly dangerous malware into his computer. Once the bank shift was over and everyone left, the virus executed its stealth operation. It didn't just sat in his computer but rapidly started spreading into the entire network of computers that were connected on that server. And this malware's target was not even that innocent employee's computer. It was looking for one special system that controlled all other subsystems and also had authorized access to servers, domain controllers, and other network resources. In simple terms, the admin computer. But even for a highly dangerous malware, it wasn't an easy task to find the admin computer. The bank's corporate network had thousands of devices interconnected all the way from phones, computers, printers, servers, and other network resources. And the virus was structured in a way that avoided detection while gathering information, which required operating slowly and carefully. However, after weeks of monitoring, the virus finally got access to the admin PC. The malware now started wreaking havoc on the admin PC by rapidly opening and closing hundreds of background applications, severely slowing down the system. To resolve the problem, the supervisor in charge of the admin PC called the IT department and requested them to look into her computer. One of the IT guys came over to the admin PC and asked her to reboot and log in again. And the malware was simply waiting for exactly that to happen. The supervisor re-entered the username and password so that the IT guy can start working. As she entered her credentials, the virus captured every keystroke from the keyboard, basically giving the credentials to the virus that gave complete control of the admin network to the virus. The IT guy tried to find a problem and even ran antivirus to detect any infection but couldn't find anything suspicious and left. Over the course of 2 to 4 months, the virus simply sat in the admin PC monitoring every move of the bank's operation, all the way from international wire transfers to local transactions, ATM withdrawals, and even phone conversations. However, at this point, the virus could not control anything or execute operations but simply observe. To gain operational control, the virus needed access to the biggest element in the entire network, the domain controller. The DC was like the brain that controlled and executed everything, and even had the authority to move physical components inside ATM machines, CCTV cameras, and even opening and closing of secure doors. Once the virus got access to the domain controller, it was time to make some money. July 8, 2016, two men named Sergei Brzezowski and Vladimir Berkman arrived in Taipei, Taiwan. They were simply the money mules who were tasked to collect money from specific ATM machines at specific times spread all over the city. They rent a car and drive to their first target location in the city. They hop out, walk to the ATM kiosk, and wait. After a few seconds, the ATM, without their instruction, dispenses huge sums of cash flying all over the place. They quickly collect the money, put it in their backpacks, and drive to their next location. Over the course of a week, they collect over $2 million from 41 hacked ATM machines. Once their task was complete, they head over to Taipei's main train station and put the bags full of cash into lockers at the station. After a while, two different men arrive at the station, collect the bags left behind by Sergei and Vladimir, and leave. And this operation wasn't just taking place in Taiwan, it was happening in Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and parts of Western Europe all at once. At this point, the hackers had collected hundreds of millions of dollars just by taking control over the ATM machines. However, with this initial success, they became a little greedy, and now they wanted to make billions. You see, the hackers running the cyber operations were limited in numbers, and they could only do so much remotely to steal as much money as possible. They needed a larger team to expand even further if they really wanted to make billions of dollars. But they couldn't just ask everyday people to become a cyber criminal. They needed a facade. So they created a fake IT organization called Bastion Secure with a complete legitimate-looking corporate profile. They had a professional-looking website, a proper HR department overlooking recruitments, and all other important departments to appear as legit as possible. After they had the company set up, they started posting job listings on their website looking for competent IT professionals with extremely good salary packages. They even went on to conduct one-on-one interviews for the hiring process. Moreover, they offered additional benefits like health insurance, bonuses, and even flexible working like work from home. This offer was too good to be true for most of the applicants, but no one actually doubted the legitimacy of the firm and their role in the grand scheme of things. They went on to hire more than 60 employees who, without a sliver of idea, started working for the world's one of the most sophisticated cybercrime organizations. Once the hackers had established full-fledged teams, they started to do the things that every bank does on a regular basis, handling international wire transfers, local transactions, and checking balances. They were simply mimicking what the banks did every day to avoid suspicion, but with one difference. They were not only managing customer database, but were inflating their accounts with unusual balances to make it appear as digital error. In multiple cases, the customer having a balance of $4,000 would suddenly bump up to $5,200 in the middle of the night. And by the morning, the hackers would simply pocket the difference in their own account, and the affected customer would not complain because their original balance would still remain intact. And the hackers were smart enough to not inflate the account astronomically to raise suspicion. Thousands of account inflation in small fractions started flying under the bank's radar on a daily basis in multiple countries, basically making the hackers millionaires every single day. Until one night, the head of IT was working late on a routine security maintenance and was going through the event logs from the domain controller. What he noticed completely sank the floor beneath his feet. He observed the DC was sending out encrypted data to China. He immediately realized the domain controller has been compromised. He called the head of cybersecurity at Kaspersky and asked him to drive immediately to the bank. the cybersecurity head asked the IT head to share the details on the phone, but the IT head replied that he cannot because he suspected that maybe even the phones were tapped. The head of security at 3 a.m. in the morning, perplexed by the call, got in his car and drove to the bank unbeknownst to the fact that the gates of hell were already open. At the bank, the head of IT and cybersecurity started noticing that the DC was executing commands and opening applications on its own. It was such an unusual behavior for a computer to be performing on its own. To test their theory of DC breach, they opened a simple Word document and typed, "Hello." And obviously, why would a computer reply on its own until it replied, quote, "Hi, you won't catch us," end quote. As they received this reply, they knew exactly what had happened to their network. They knew instantly once the domain controller is breached, it's game over. The head of security called an urgent meeting of many international banks and asked them to go through their entire network logs and look for any suspicious activity. The panic spread quickly all over the world that a group of hackers they named CARBANAK has compromised financial institutions and has complete control over their operations. And now it was their only priority to track and neutralize this group. You see, even after the realization that their banks have been compromised, finding the CARBANAK malware in system was an impossible task. The virus was so sophisticated that even the traditional antivirus could not find it anywhere in the system because, first of all, the virus used a technique called process masquerading, where it disguises itself as explorer.exe or svchost.exe, which is a normal process that appears in the task manager. Second of all, it had a memory-only execution, which means the malware operated entirely from the memory or RAM, having no traces on the hard disk. And during the time, even the most sophisticated antiviruses could only scan hard disks, which kept the virus completely undetected. And there was no way of knowing who were the people behind CARBANAK and where were they operating from. They were basically sitting hopeless and were waiting for a miracle to happen. July 10th, 2016, Taipei, Taiwan. Remember too many mules who were tasked with collecting millions of dollars from the hacked ATMs across the city? Well, guess what? During their operation on one night, while they were waiting for the ATM to dispense cash, a Taiwanese citizen suddenly appeared behind them who had also come to withdraw some cash. However, after realizing someone is standing behind them, the too many mules panicked and fled the area without picking the money the machine had already dispensed. The Taiwanese citizen could have collected the cash himself. Instead, he called the Taipei police station informing that ATMs are dispensing cash automatically, and he also saw two masked men with casual clothes fleeing the area. The Taipei police already knew that banks all over the world have been compromised, so they opened an investigation linking the weird ATM malfunction with the CARBANAK group, and they were right. The police tracked down all the ATM kiosks across the city, and at one ATM, they found an ID card laying on the ground. It belonged to a man named Sergei Berezovsky. The police identified the hotel he was staying in, however, they realized he had already fled to Russia. Until a few days later, the police found a CCTV footage of his partner, Vladimir Berkman, keeping back full of cash at Taipei's train station. The police finally got their first link. The manhunt had officially begun that could finally lead to their first suspects in the CARBANAK cyber heist. After Vladimir Berkman left the bag at the station, two other men arrived, picked up the bag, and went to the hotel. The police, using a wide network of CCTV spread all over the city, were able to track down their location and found over $1.5 million stashed away in their hotel room. They were arrested immediately by the Taipei police. Their names, Nikolai Penko and Mikhail Kulibaba. At the police station, Both the suspects were interrogated extensively, and finally they snitched on their group leader, Andreas Purgadovs. They told the police that Purgadovs is still in Taipei and is on the loose. The police within a few days captured Andreas Purgadovs, who also had hidden millions of dollars in a hilly area of Dahu Park. After capturing group leader Purgadovs, the police scanned his phone to find further links into the CARBANAK heist case, and they eventually found a name: Dennis K. Initially, the police thought it's just another contact or a money mule like Penko or Kolibaba, but Dennis K was a ghost. They soon realized Dennis K is none other than the mastermind who's always been behind the entire network of the CARBANAK. Now, the Taiwanese police were in desperate need of international help to hunt down Dennis K. The Interpol, FBI, Europol, and dozens of other international authorities swang into action to find this man. Suddenly, Dennis K had become the most wanted man in the entire world. In 2018, the ATMs in Spain suddenly started to spit cash similarly to the ones in Taipei, and without a sliver of doubt, the international authorities linked it to the CARBANAK group. They flew to a port city of Alicante after getting a tip from Spanish authorities that Dennis K could be living lavishly here in Alicante. They tracked down his possible location in the city and raided a house. And there he was, with his luxury house, cars, watches, and of course his laptop casually sitting on the table with 15,000 bitcoins worth 165 million US dollars. The leader of the CARBANAK was finally captured. The banking system improved their cybersecurity and were out of danger. However, the CARBANAK is still active today, pretending to be another pissed-off customer still sending phishing emails.